What's up, Turf Show Times? This is Kenneth Arthur, and today I want to go through a mock draft for the Los Angeles Rams. We know that they have the least amount of day one and day two draft capital of any team in the NFL. They'll be the last team on the board if they don't trade up. Here they are at 104. The Rams will be picking if they don't trade up into the 2022 NFL draft, which I wouldn't expect them to trade any picks to sort of add a pick in here. I mean, I guess they could move up a few spots here, but we'll get to all that. Make sure to go to Twitter and follow Turf Show Times on twitter.com at Turf Show Times. Find us on Facebook at Turf Show Times as well. And a video coming up on the Turf Show Times YouTube channel right now. So if you haven't, you can subscribe to Turf Show Times on YouTube for this video, and we'll see what happens in the future, because I've posted a video on the salary cap yesterday, and today I wanted to post a video on the draft. You know, it's going to be difficult for anybody to project any players to the Rams in this year's draft. There's a lot of great draft profiles being created over at turfshowtimes.com by Ferragamo15. It just makes a lot of excellent draft profiles. Make sure to check that out. And I know that those profiles help guide me into maybe some of the players that will be available on day three, because obviously whether you are Ferragamo or whether you are Randy Soares, our writer at Turf Show Times, who's been covering some draft sleepers, you know, that's pretty much all that the Rams can hope for, again, is draft sleepers, players who fall to day three that actually have at least day two value, which I think is a great, way to explain the value, say, of Sebastian Joseph Day or something like that. You know, if you get a Sebastian Joseph Day in the sixth round, he's a solid mid-second round pick, I think, on the field. That's not an insult. You know, I think if you could have justified drafting Sebastian Joseph Day in the second round, no problem. And that's a great thing to get in the sixth round, and the Rams will be looking for that in this. So, you know, I'm trying first here, ProFootballFocus.com, their mock draft simulator, and, select the Rams and move forward knowing that this is going to not, result in a lot for the Rams here in the first couple of rounds. Good thing that we can set this to fast, right? So that we don't have to wait around for everybody else. Like, imagine how torturous that's going to be when the draft starts. And, the first round, definitely not going to involve the Rams. The second round, almost certainly not going to involve the Rams. And then in the third round, the Rams don't pick until the compensatory selections in the third round. So that'll be at pick 104. Let's get this party started, and let's give some prayers up there that it doesn't take so long for PFF to manufacture these fake selections of the 2022 NFL draft. You know, Rams needs listed here as guard, center, linebacker, cornerback. I don't know why. Let's not give too much credit here to PFF other than, they hired somebody to create a mock draft simulator. So I'm grateful for PFF for hiring somebody who knew how to make draft simulators. A lot of websites have them now, and that's a good thing for all of us. See, lots of picks remaining. Probably at this point, the Rams may have the most remaining picks in the NFL. So if you just think of pick 104C as pick number one in the NFL draft, which for the Rams it is, hey, at that point, the Rams might have the most remaining draft picks in the NFL. And that's something that people always bring up. Oh, look, this team's got 3 of the next 40 picks, or that's a lot, but it's not that much. But, that's what the case will be for the Rams at the end of day 2, right before the 49ers make the final pick of day 2. And then the Rams come up again in round 4, but again, it's not going to be that great. It's at the end of round 4. And then in round 5, as you can see me scrolling here on the left side, pick 175 at the end of round 5. And maybe they don't have the most remaining picks after all. Round 6, 1, 2, 3 picks for the Rams. And in round 7, another pick and another pick. So 5 picks in rounds 6 and 7 But right now, the Rams are on the clock at the, let's see what the PFF said. They said that the Jaguars are picking Kyle Hamilton, whose most recent pro day 40-yard dash was faster than his combine. Unfortunately, his combine time was so disappointing that faster wasn't quite fast enough, I would say, to go first overall. But Kyle Hamilton, I'm also not saying he's a bad player. He's going to be a very good player in the NFL. But the Jaguars take Kyle Hamilton. This is neither here nor there. You don't care about that. Let's go ahead and check out the Rams. Right after this round of selections, looks like the Chiefs have selected running back Dameon Pierce. You got Cam Taylor-Britt here from Nebraska, who I wrote an article about on turfshowtimes.com, if you go find that. Isaiah Likely, one of my favorite sleeper tight ends in the NFL draft, probably. Big fan of Coastal Carolina, big fan of Grayson McCall, the quarterback at Coastal Carolina. So I'm a big fan of Isaiah Likely and Javon Hiley, the wide receiver. But that's strongly connected to my adoration of Grayson McCall. Carson Strong, maybe the best arm of any quarterback in the NFL draft this year, but injury concerns, scheme concerns, I think, actually a pretty good fit here for the New Orleans Saints if that were to happen. Center Luke Fortner, edge Myjai Sanders or MJ Sanders. I don't really know, but when we look at what the Rams are doing, it's interesting to say that need is center because the Rams just signed a center for 3 years named Brian Allen. Think they were pretty happy with him. So I don't think that is actually a need at all. Guard, the Rams do have, some needed guard here. We know that Coleman Shelton has been re-signed. We know that that's not super helpful. Maybe, we'll find out. Maybe there's going to be a competition just like there have been in these last couple of training camps, churning through some of these guys like a Coleman Shelton, like a Tremaine Ankrum, and that competition could bear fruit just like David Edwards on the left side, but David Edwards will be a free agent in 2023. So that is certainly something to take in consideration for the guard position. I think tackle, though, would probably have a priority over both of these. I know that Joseph Nopum was just re-signed and Rob Haven signed. They might expect a long-term commitment, I guess, perhaps, but tackle is tackle, so I would not avoid tackles necessarily. And I would say you could probably throw a lot of stuff on the board. Definitely cornerback and linebacker would be two of the easier ones. I would say it wouldn't hurt the Rams to, continue to try and build up the defensive line, to continue to try and find a very superior edge rusher, after the loss of Von Miller in free agency, or even to draft wide receiver if there was one that you really, really liked a lot. So I'm not going to pretend to be a huge expert on these players here. Like I said, there are those out there who know way, 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 way more than I do. I've been paying attention, and I've been doing some reading and some watching of some videos and general knowledge maybe of some of these players having followed college football. But I would say that my main focus here, because nobody's going to get the picks right, okay? Nobody out there that's doing a mock draft for the Rams is going to get the picks right. I would say that out of all these picks, if somebody gets one name right, we should give them a round of applause. If you get two names right, you might work for the Rams or have a source inside the Rams. It's just going to be difficult to make those types of connections unless you make like thousands of them, unless you are throwing every name at the wall. So we're going to see what we can find here. Donovan West, he's a pretty good center out of the Pac-12. He was regularly winning like weekly offensive line of the year, but weekly awards for offensive line play. We can see here at PFF, if you click on the names, give you a tiny bit more information. He's a bit undersized here at 6'4", 300, but yeah, he's an experienced center who, isn't going to change the game necessarily. He might be able to have some position versatility, but anyway, that's just the first name on the board. And you definitely don't want to take PFF's just their first name on the board. I don't think it really works that way. James Cook, brother of Dalvin Cook, potentially a schematic similarity to Cam Akers. If there was any concern about whether or not Cam Akers would have availability next season, you might take a guy like James Cook. Zion McCollum, cornerback out of Sam Houston State's got a lot of length and speed, and definitely is a project cornerback that the Rams could consider, just like they did with Robert Rochelle a year ago in this range. And you don't necessarily need to put all your eggs into the Robert Rochelle and David Long basket. So taking a cornerback at this point makes a lot of sense to me. I think that the Rams could consider taking a tight end, Tyler Higbee and his long-term future with the Rams. What does that look like? And how confident are the Rams in Kendall Blanton and Bryson Hopkins? Jalen Wiedemeyer, a guy who has really fallen off of draft boards after, at one point, some said maybe this guy's going to be the best tight end in the 2022 draft. And I think at this point, there's talk about him not getting drafted at all. And so whether that is just hearsay or the reality, we'll find out next month. But I think tight end is definitely something that I wouldn't toss out as being, unbelievable. It could definitely happen. I mean, these ranges here down the board at the end of round 3, and even by now, it's just like the names aren't going to jump out at anybody as being like, oh wow, this guy is a great, but you'll get steals, right? But it's just at the end of the day, it's like these are the guys who aren't going to be getting a lot of headlines and news, and that's where the Rams fall out of the conversation. But where the Rams lead the conversation is when people are talking about who just won the Super Bowl. So that's a benefit there for the Rams, is winning the Super Bowl. Isaiah Spiller, once at one point considered maybe a first-round running back, and now has been falling more and more on the boards here for running back position, and there's a lot of running backs. So, you wouldn't want to, I don't think, draft a running back in the 3rd round, especially if you're the Rams. But with Darrell Henderson being a free agent next year, I don't think it's going to be crazy to see the Rams draft a running back. I think that'll probably happen. Matt Araiza, the punter that a lot of people like, and, the Rams having cut Johnny Hecker, there's going to be a lot of talk about go get Matt Araiza. But I don't think that is going to happen in the 3rd round. Jeffrey Gunter, edge out of Coastal Carolina. Velus Jones Jr., a very fast wide receiver at tight end, a wide receiver at Tennessee. And yeah, there's so many players here. I just read the Jesse Lakita profile of Ferragamo's over at Turf Show Times, so don't forget to go check that out. Lots of names here to start considering for the Rams next, however many picks. It's going to be a lot of guys like this, where you're just kind of filling in the gaps of the roster and, fitting a position with things that where you think, especially for Les Snead, we know that the vision usually is like, who are the Rams going to need in 2 years, 3 years? That's where a lot of these picks coming in handy, for the Rams. You look at a guy like Brian Allen, it was like 4 years. It was like 4 years that until his need was needed, and it worked out. It worked out for the Rams, for Stafford, and so you never know if that's going to be the case. And so these needs have to be able to take into account what looks like something that the Rams may need in a couple of years. I think, wide receiver is something that has to be talked about, even with Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson being the starters, even with Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell and Jacob Harris being recent draft picks. We know that the Rams highly value the wide receiver position. They've brought in some of the biggest names ever since Sean McVay arrived. They use draft picks on them, and that's not going to change just because there's, an abundance right now, and maybe Odell Beckham Jr. will return. Maybe he won't. I would say right now, maybe he won't. That would probably be the way that I lean. And so when we're talking about what the Rams would need in 2 years, that could definitely include wide receiver, but I'm definitely not going to do it here. So let's all calm down. Cornerback is something that We talked about how the Rams took Robert Rochelle, but is that going to be enough at this point? Kobe Bryant, another guy with a lot of athleticism and size and speed, and that'll be someone who could be on the board. I think there's always that element of speed for Les Snead as well, and we know that he likes GPS timing, and they took some of the fastest players out of the draft last year, including Jacob Harris and Robert Rochelle, and for his position, Bobby Brown. A lot of guys that were just like super fast. So that's a possibility here. And so you can also go. I like this site, NFL Mock Draft Database. It's got all kinds of things in there about where guys are going. So if you go and check out a guy like Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State, we can find out that he's projected for the 5th round from all of the mock drafts that have been posted out there. He's 6'2", 199. He ran a 4.33 40-yard dash. He had a 40-inch vertical, very fast 3-cone shuttle, huge broad jump. And yet, it's funny because the combine bumps guys that barely do anything at it. And then a guy like Zion McCollum, and maybe I'm just a fool. Like I said, I'm not an expert on all these guys. I'm not even a draft expert. They're saying 5th round. So they're telling me that this would be a reach, I think. And yet at the same time, I think not quite a reach. He's pretty he's the highest rated cornerback for PFF. Now that's another issue. It's like how much I hate the way that this working at PFF, I hate the way that this influences people for making their picks, because you're going off of, this is impossible to avoid the feeling of like, well, if I take this guy, am I an idiot? But then other websites, very reputable writers, very reputable experts, will tell you like, no, PFF is way, way, way off. Nobody is right. So, just go with your gut. And I'll go with Zion McCollum here in the 3rd round, because we know that cornerback is something that the Rams have a long-term need for. And so when we're talking about getting guys involved, with 2023 and 2024 in mind, and you've got a guy like McCollum who's got really exceptional athleticism and plays the position you like, and is going to take a little bit longer to maybe develop. I think he's working on becoming a cornerback right now, so I think it's not that crazy of a pick to me, and it happened. So fight me. For the next pick, look, if I was looking at PFF's board, offensive tackles is what they're pushing on me, and I'm thinking, oh man, wow, well, I guess the Rams could get an offensive tackle here, maybe have an heir apparent to Rob Havenstein, who's a free agent in a year, and you just want to have those options available to you, and the Rams have a couple other guys that they're developing, like Max Percher from the International Pathway Program, and so it's never bad to, I think, draft tackles. We also know that the Rams, they could use a linebacker. I'm getting offered trades here. I'm going to turn all these down. But what would happen, per se, if we looked at the edge? A lot of options here. There's going to be a lot of talk about a lot of these guys, and Adam Anderson, very talented player who comes with some very significant off-field baggage, and I don't know where he's going to get drafted, if he's going to get drafted at all. We've also got Tyreek Smith, edge at Ohio State, 6'3", 265. If we're going out here, and we go back to the mock draft database, not Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Smith at Ohio State. They're projecting him around the 4th round based on all the mock drafts. At one point, it looks like SI, there was a mock draft that had him going 13th in early January. Not a ton of production, 3 sacks last season, but probably as usual coming out of Ohio State, 6'3", 254, ran a 4.86, 34-inch vertical, all pretty fine numbers, but falling more and more as the draft appears to get closer. I think it's getting closer. So many choices, so little time. How about we check out the linebackers And I love a good linebacker. Whoops. 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 And there we go, I think. So, yeah, lots of options there. What I wanted to do is look at just linebackers. DeMarco, Jack, Nephi, Nephew, Nate Landman, who, he's not going to have a very high ceiling. Balin Spector, one of my favorite names in the draft. But how about Malcolm Rodriguez? I think that he is a guy who had a very productive senior season. Oops. Well, I just did it anyway. So there you go. Malcolm Rodriguez, a linebacker, and indisputably the correct pick for the Rams because I made it. I would like to see what the Rams have in the bag for some of those edge players. We see all these guys are available. Jesse Luketa, make sure to go check out that draft profile over at Turf Show Times of Jesse Luketa. And now there you go. You'll have a reason to do it. I've drafted him. Here we go with the Rams going into round 6. And now this is where the work gets busy. Look at this. Everybody's going to say, take him. He's the punter. I think it's going to be a real risk to draft this Ariza guy. But at the same time, because it's like already there's so much pressure on him for that position. You never get pressure from there. And so I would say for now, Okonkwo had some great athleticism at the combine compared to a pretty underwhelming tight end class and group, honestly. So there is that side to it. There's a lot of really good fits here, and I think looking forward a couple of years, there's going to be options all over the board, including safety. There's so many different directions to go, but since I know that the Rams love a good speed pick, we can go with Okonkwo, add him into the tight end mix, and then satisfy everybody with Ariza because I just need to get out of here with my head still attached, and I think maybe one of you out there will like that pick. So defend my honor out there if you can. I would really appreciate it. I think running back is something that the Rams could be considering in this range. Sony Michel is a free agent. Jake Funk carries a lot of injury concerns, and all running backs do. So, if you're able to get a guy at this range, I think I would love to draft Max Borghi out of Washington State for the Rams here. 2 picks left. I don't know if that was too early for Borghi, but it did happen. Look, another punter. Do you double down on punters? I think a lot of people would say, yes. Go out there, draft a punter again. Please draft multiple punters. But I'm not going to do it. I'm going to look for a nice, handsome edge player that you can take home to your parents. And I don't know if we're going to get like a fantastic one here in the 7th round, but we are going to get Tyree Johnson out of Texas A&M. I know this guy, not personally, but he's now on the Rams. And finally, here we are at the end of the 7th round. Travis Dye, another guy, could sign a quarterback, I think, after the draft. I don't know if the Rams are going to have to lock one down with a draft pick, but could sign a quarterback because, whether it's John Wolford or Bryce Perkins, there's always that potential to continue looking through other quarterbacks. You never know what you're going to find, and you never know what could eventually turn into like a really good-looking backup quarterback, or potentially even some guy that has value to another team in trade or to the Rams as a starter. You just can't be too careful with the quarterback position. So that's always an option. I think I could even look to check out these wide receivers since we didn't draft a wide receiver. I was a big fan of Devin Tompkins at Ohio State. And honestly, PFF doesn't have that many prospects because there's actually many more hundreds than 351 or wherever this full list of players ends. It's way more players than this in the draft. So we're just going to take Devin Tompkins. Because I liked him in college. So there you go. I'm probably going to get a terrible grade here for the draft, but that's okay. No, thank you. And so Zion McCollum, Malcolm Rodriguez, Jesse Lakita, Chigozie Okonkwo, Matt Ariza, Max Borghi, Tyree Johnson, and Devin Tompkins. Overall grade C+. Didn't have a pick until 104. And I think Zion McCollum is a fine number 1 pick. And I think the Rams, they go defense on their first 3. Probably filled that punter position too early. I think I underestimated how much more time was left, or overestimated. Got a big fat juicy D+ on that one, and that's okay because we don't care about any of this. They hated the Lukita pick because he was so low on their board compared to this. But again, it happened. It happened. That's going to be it for the mock draft at PFF. A C+ grade. Totally fine with that. This is the end of the video as well. Go ahead and leave a comment below on the video, or over at turfshowtimes.com on the article where I'll post this mock draft next. Stay tuned for more mock drafts to go, where I'm going to learn more about these prospects, and the prospects of that have me quite excited. Make sure to follow Turf Show Times on social media. And again, go to turfshowtimes.com for wall-to-wall football coverage of the Rams.